When streaming arrived, the music industry scrambled. Nobody had a clear playbook for what it meant, how to price it, how to talk about it, or what it would do to the business. The brands and labels that navigated it well weren't the ones who waited for certainty. They were the ones already in the room learning fast. That parallel between the disruption from streaming and what AI is doing to marketing right now, that's the lens that our guest today brings to this conversation. Not as theory, as something she's already lived through from the inside. Welcome back to The Pencil Perspective. I'm Tim, joined today by Toby. Hi, Toby.
Hey, Tim.
It's great to have you here covering for Will. And our guest today is Callie Goldstein, who has just been promoted to Global VP of Customer Success at Pencil. Welcome, Callie, and big congratulations on the promotion.
Thanks, Tim. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, after Spotify, Callie moved into social and digital, building campaigns at 360i and Depth for brands like NBC, Twitch, Reddit, and DoorDash. She joined Pencil in 2025, and now she's the person sitting with enterprise marketing teams every week, helping them understand what GenAI actually means for how they work, not in the abstract, but in practice. Today, we're going to talk about what clients actually need from AI right now, through the lens of someone who watched the last great disruption happen in real time and is watching this one too. Why AI needs to be talked about in the plural, not the singular. Why craft still matters even when the machine can do the work. And what real client success with AI looks like from the inside.
The story, right? The story that Tim prefaced. When you were at Sony, Spotify was a small account. Like, I remember when you came to Pencil, you were like, this is like weirdly familiar. You want to tell us a little bit about that story and what it was like?
Yeah, I mean, it's we've had this conversation that this whole AI transformation and what it's doing to an industry is like a lightning in a bottle moment. And they say lightning doesn't strike twice, but maybe for me it has, because it is a fundamental sea change of how like things get done. And there are so many parallels. I would say the advertising transformation journey and what AI is doing to digital industry overall has far more complexities, even though at the time it seemed like there were so many complexities, from metadata to streaming strategy to, you know, all of the things that impacted going from, you know, once they were physical, then it was digital and they thought they had their feet on the ground. And now, you know, the streaming, how does it work? How do we get paid? How do the artists get paid? And, you know, that conversation is still happening. But what AI is doing to advertising is amazing. I mean, I think if we take a step back, we've all been using AI for a very long time. Your phone auto-correcting, you know, your text messages, like that's AI. It's learning how you're speaking. So I think there's subtle ways that AI is impacting all of us. But now that it's on every headline, it's front and center, and it's fundamentally changing the way that work gets done, it is a fascinating time just to kind of see the different parallels between both.
I mean, that's a really interesting way of framing it, because you're not just talking about AI as a single thing. Like, if we're thinking about the many, many different applications of AI in different places, but also within the marketing industry, it's many, many different things for many, many different use cases. So what does it mean in practice when we think about AI in the plural, in that multifaceted sense? For a marketing team, what are they going to get out of that? And what does a misunderstanding about that potentially risk?
You said the word yourself, use cases, right? Like, the way that you use AI has to feel relevant for you. The marketer, the digital media manager is not going to use the AI in the same way that the designer or the creative director or even the strategist is going to use it. So really understanding what your use cases are and starting from the point of, what are my repeatable tasks? What are my tedious tasks? What are my biggest pain points? And then going from there and backing into how can tools like Pencil or any of the individual models out there make that easier. Where the confusion happens, or where kind of people get stuck, is they hit a friction point, right? I think it's a very human experience in this digital on-demand world. It's to get stuck on one thing and then be like, okay, that's enough, and keep on moving, because there's just so much on everybody's plate and everything moves so fast. But really taking a step back and looking at, like, what if I do learn this? Can this unlock for me? If I just hit a friction point and move through the friction point and get to where I need to go, what does that open up longer term? And I think that's the balance with AI being so on demand and quick, but also taking a skill and taking time to really finding that unlock and finding that finding that value. So you have this longer term picture in mind of, again, like time as the currency that this all opens up for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, this is a conversation we've had many times before, Callie. We are talking about use cases constantly internally at Pencil. And it's always one of the great surprises as well, if there can be new use cases that just pop up. Like, a module will be capable of something that even potentially the module provider won't have been aware of before. On the flip side, though, you've just alluded to the fact that it's not a magic wand. This isn't a case of you put a brief in and you get the perfect crafted series of creatives out of it. You need polish, you need human interaction, that human in the loop. So what does that mean for our clients in practice?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about kind of the transformation that I went through at Sony, but I also don't want to not talk about social, because that was my place where I went after Sony, and how there's a lot of parallels and similarities between the early days of social, where it was just like, oh, we have this platform, you can reach a lot of people, you can just push things out, and then you've done your social media job. And now, looking back on that, there's the creator marketing space. There's people who are dedicated to just building social plans and social playbooks. And these jobs didn't exist 10 years ago. We're going through a very similar, like, refinement and refresh of roles and possibilities and industry that can happen here. So the art director is always going to be the best at generating images. I can now generate an image that I could have never, brought my brain to life in a way without AI, but I'm never going to get that polish or that craft that somebody who's actually been trained to have that eye to get.
I want to talk about the stuff, the W's where you've won and where you brought a client on, and it was like, oh, sweet, this is going really well. What you worked through to get to that place. Maybe you landed differently in a different place than you thought you initially conceived to go. How they briefed the work, like how did you navigate, as you just described, that journey, and how did it come to success? A nice example.
We work with a beauty brand who signed on with us right as the agentic frameworks were being launched in Pencil, and everybody wanted an agent, but nobody really came to us with a problem that needed to be solved. One divisional lead came to us with a problem that her team was spending weeks at a time individually copying lines of content from platform to Excel doc to create hundreds of thousands at times of lines of PDP copy. And so she came to us with a problem. We identified the use case, and we built her a robust agent that would help take that time down from weeks to hours, or even sometimes like less than an hour. And that helps scale her team. Her team is now able to do thinking and strategy around those PDP lines of copy. Where does that go? Does this fit right? Instead of spending their full day doing the manual tasks. And it's things like that catch wind throughout the organizations, and people start to demystify what an agent is and what it can do, and see a practical, tangible outcome of how really leaning into AI and coming with a problem and knowing that AI could potentially solve that for you. That's where the unlocks really are.
Yeah, it ends up the technology is almost in the background, right? It's about the problem, the use case, as you mentioned in the earlier part of the conversation, and the successful application is what gives you scale. So like, it feels logical, but in practice, it's nice to have it reinforced in reality. And now for a more tricky question. So that was the good stuff. What about the harder version? Like what are the patterns in the engagements that stall? And not the dramatic failures, like spectacular fireworks failures, because but maybe even the slow ones, the pilots that don't scale, what's underneath that, what and can we see it coming? Can we do anything about it? But I guess the first question is like, yeah, could you explain a dynamic that's like that, and what are the reasons why?
Yeah, we do see that. And I think, as the conversation about AI doesn't get any smaller, it's not going away, it's only growing, and the landscape is materially changing. But where we see right now, people get stuck on a very singular thing. They either like hit a roadblock, or it doesn't do exactly what they want to do. Going back to Tim's language earlier about like AI being a magic wand, they try something, they hit a roadblock, and then it's really hard to kind of get them out of that. But what does help get you out of that is, again, zooming out and looking at the big picture of what this really means when you get this right. Like if you go to the gym and you lift a weight one time, are you going to walk out with the biggest muscles you've ever seen? No. It is the same requirement for practice and figuring out what works for you. And we like to start our clients with smaller use cases so we can unlock either the biggest pain point or the lowest hanging fruit, and then build upon that instead of saying, here's AI, go try to do it all. And that's where I think that our team really excels, with the right mix of tech and service, and really meeting clients where they are, and understanding that like everybody has a human experience. Again, going back to like, if a website is taking a little long time to load, you're going to shift your focus to something else because you got 10 other things to do. But really redirecting the conversation and the actions to keep focused on the larger opportunity of what tech can solve. If tech can make 80% of your workload easier, faster, more efficient, more effective, but 20% still requires that manual effort, that human in the loop, that thinking, that's a huge win. You're going from 100% of the manual time to 80%, and now you have unlocked so much more time for yourself, for your team, for growth, for what we like to call the experimental moat, and reinvesting into places that you didn't have the resource or bandwidth to do previously. So that's that's how we get people out of this kind of stuck place.
So no 5-day weight loss plans then, yeah?
No skinny fit tea. No skinny fit tea is gonna help you now.
Oh no. Exactly. Guess what? You have to work and be consistent, and it takes time. Who'd have thought?
The really striking thing there in your answer, Callie, is that we're talking about tech. Like inherently, everything we're talking about here is new technology, new changes, new shifts. And yet the thing that's needed to get it right is entirely human. Like everything you articulated is the way that people learn and develop as humans. It's the way the human brain works, not a tech solution.
Right, and I think that sometimes gets said out loud, but it's nice to hear you frame it in a way that you can actually follow how it can go right and where it goes wrong, and how you actually bring to life that concept of, it's actually the human involved that either that's the responsible entity for this process succeeding or failing. It's good to put some tangible stuff to it, right?
And something that really resonates with clients are like, why are we called Pencil? And it's because we're a tool for humans, and we truly believe that. We see it in practice. We continue to believe that and build product that is a helpful tool for humans, not a replacement. And I think that is sometimes where the fear and the reality kind of get intermixed, but it really is true to our ethos and what we see every single day. Toby, we've described AI in the plural. There's different models, there's different roles, and we know that Pencil is an aggregator for all of the latest and greatest. But Are enterprise clients coming to Pencil already thinking in those terms, or is AI a big scary thing and we need to still frame what we're walking into most of the time? How do clients perceive AI?
I mean, the three of us in particular deal with this every day, don't we? I think the truth is, I think I speak for all three of us when I say there is a huge gap. You alluded to it just a little bit before, right? There is a global narrative, a hype cycle narrative that actually makes our jobs quite difficult, frankly, because the truth is there is so much merit and so much benefit and so much value in what we do that gets obscured in this hype. And so typically speaking, and again, I speak for all of us when I say what our job is first is to bring the conversation into the reality. And the reality is that you have amazing models that have been developed over the course and sort of really become prevalent in the past few years that need to be brought into a marketing context, which is in a context, in our case, it's a marketing context. And you need to understand that the blend of both of those things, which is practically what we do, right? We're the service teams at Pencil. We bring those worlds together. And I think that tends to be how you need to have that conversation. And what I mean by that, like, what do we do as marketing teams? Well, we come up with, we identify a business need. We come up with a brief to satiate that need. We produce work. We analyze said work. We launch said work. We know, I mean, I hope we know what we do. I mean, if we're not, then we've got some problems, but we know what we do. And then the truth is how the blending of those two worlds. Oh, okay. So then what does the application of AI into that context mean? And that is what we do. And that's also what Pencil is. It is the operating system that takes into account said process, said end-to-end process of any marketing team, give or take, in the world, and agentifies it, or effectively just harnesses the model's sort of lightning in a bottle, as you said, into that context to drive effectiveness efficiencies for businesses, right? But that is sometimes a conversation that's done easily, and sometimes the conversation that takes a bit of time. But it's no fault of anyone's, like we're all coming at this from very different perspectives and we're being bombarded by 10 million things daily. But that is our job to clarify that and simplify it.
I think what you're hitting on is that we are taking clients on a transformation. Can you talk about the transformation that Pencil has done? Like, how do we put big transformation and all the tactical things that we know needs to get done? How does that get real in practice? And is there an example that you can share of an enterprise client where we've seen this come to life?
So I'll bring it to life with a few examples, and I won't name names, but I will say that I think. Yes, to answer your question, it is transformation. Ultimately, we're selling a piece of technology, but ultimately we're selling that business to change from the way that they did things historically to a new way that is now allowed by this technology. Yeah, as you so well put. So I think we tend to try to simplify it and drive the conversation from a context that we all understand, or at least that most of our clients should understand, given that we work in the marketing industry. So it is a from to conversation, typically speaking, and that from to across a couple different areas. But for the sake of clarity, I'll say that the one is, and often this one dominates conversations, it's the way work is produced. Yeah, so the imagery, the video, the text, the model capability brought to life in terms of generative AI, right? And frankly, we probably talk about it more because social media is a visual medium, and guess what? People share visual things. But I would say that's one aspect of a transformation. So how do you go the from to with respect to that, the production itself? And then there's the from to end to end of how work flows through a marketing ecosystem. Yeah. So how do you come to a conclusion that the business, your brand, needs this campaign or this campaign idea? Have you, for example, come to a conclusion that this particular spirit brand in your portfolio is completely reliant on a seasonal campaign because someone drinks this particular thing only during winter and you want to expand that for more occasions? Quite hard, brief, frankly, but Imagine we are a brand portfolio owner, and we have this dilemma. Then how do you take that into that's the process that I need, and how do you leverage AI to, for example, in the insights piece, garner or consolidate insights, parse insights, digest insights from 20 disparate sources across your organization, third parties, first party data. AI is very good at that, for example. How do you then formulate a brief? How do you then brief your 20 agencies that work in parallel on work concurrently? And how do you then resource that work in your business? How do you then produce it? Like I mentioned before, analyze it, launch it in media, analyze the performance in media, and do the whole party again. That is where the other aspect of AI that folks talk about here and there, and we're becoming more sort of acutely aware of the benefit and the efficiency in the entire process. But that's the other really major part of a transformation. And that is, those two things are speaking to, a very business oriented approach to the application of AI. But I think to Tim's point, there's a probably even more important dimension, which is the human dimension, and the adoption of the technology, the change, the implication of said change on people's day to day. Like, it lives or dies by your ability to do that incredibly well. And that is the third dimension that is, I think folks are very aware, but maybe not aware how much effort needs to go into that for it to succeed.
I mean, on that front, the human element here, the human in the loop, is so important. How is Pencil built to really empower that? Because we want that human in the loop. It's so easy for a tech platform to try to do everything. And we see it in plenty of other AI applications. The AI process has become increasingly autonomous. We don't want Pencil to be that. So how is the product designed to make sure that the human stays at the center?
Tim, frankly, we talk about it every day, right? Like, and it is not just one singular way. But I think that if I try to answer your question, I will give you tangible examples, and I won't be so avoidant, I promise. But I think the first point is a point that Callie made earlier too. I think it starts with what impact do you want to have in the sector or domain that you operate in, right? We chose, or rather I should say, Sumuk and Will chose to operate in the creative space, in the advertising space, out of respect for creativity, frankly, on the one hand, but also because they had domain expertise and worked in this area before, as I did, as Callie did, as many of us did, right? I think that's the first thing. And with that comes a sense of responsibility for what impact do you want to have with, frankly, what is a Promethean moment in our industry, right? And what side of the coin do you want to, what side of the equation do you want to fall on? Do you want, or side of history do you want to fall on a contributive factor for the things that folks are very scared of? You mentioned autonomous leads to redundancies, very scary, right? Or what can you do in everyday thinking, and how can you bring it to life in such a way that, to your point, it becomes a tool, or it empowers individuals, even though capabilities may become more autonomous over time. I'll explain. But first, it starts there. It starts with, who are you, and what impact do you want to have, and do you take that responsibility seriously in the ethos of your company? Then it becomes, how does that manifest itself? And I think it manifests itself for us in a few different ways. We try to, firstly, our teams are made up of engineers, product folks, but also many folks who have worked and have worked in the advertising industry themselves, including myself, including others. So it starts with empathy. Empathy when our customers, our clients are in this industry. To be a like-minded individual, it helps for you to, first of all, take into account and make it palatable their lived experience, right? But in the product, many decisions on a daily basis. I'll give you one example. Firstly, the product was very much a generative AI tool before it became a marketing operating system. And in that context, it's very, very easy, right? Like, you leverage it as an extension of many means of production that you might have available to you. It is a tool for you as an individual, as a creative individual, and that's what it has been for many years. As things progress agentically, what does it mean? Well, in our case, as agents became into the platform, the first thing we said was, we want to design agents and agentic workflows such that it's very much a human experience, or it takes a human to even design said workflows, intervene in the nodes, so in the points of interaction of those agents, such that it's almost a symbiotic relationship, right? You as the human being are designing the entire and architecting the workflows holistically, and you're also responsible for how things are connected, how things are designed, how things are working. So an extension of your, to use Callie's words again, your mind map in a way, yeah? That's the next evolution. And now we're coming to an evolution where as agentic capabilities progress, they will come to a point where you can simply, like with very low degrees of additional context, provide briefs, provide assets, and have an output that's really quite impressive. I'm sure that we've had various experiences with other platforms out there that can work in this way. And I think with that capability, what becomes important is still the domain expertise and the perspective of the individual designing, whether at a project level or an agentic level, what that looks like. And I think we're thinking about, what if we create a space or a marketplace in Pencil where Callie's agent goes with Callie should she work in this agency or that agency. But only Callie can decide whether she wants to place that agency in the public domain, perhaps monetize said agent. But that's at Callie's discretion. And the same for you, Tim. Perhaps you have an education agent that is so specialized in an area, perhaps in AI creativity, that it becomes incredibly beneficial and perhaps even profitable for you to place that in a marketplace domain to benefit and have that value accrue to you. It's a very different prospect, right? You could also, many companies simply allow you to do so and subsume your IP and make it available to everyone. But it's a very different perspective of what this will look like in the future, and how can we empower individuals whose domain expertise is valuable and has been valuable in our industry for a long time, but sort of grow that exponentially via technology, right? I think it's a different perspective on something that, well, I guess what I'm trying to say is it can either be a threat or it can be a real benefit to an individual, but it's down to the person designing the landscape what outcome you get to.
I think that's amazing, and kind of leads to our next question to really wrap up this conversation. Bringing it back also to the Spotify world, right? Spotify launched in the US, I believe it was 2011. I was the Spotify account in 2013, and then by 2016, Spotify was the top account and kind of became the status quo or the thing that everybody focused on. So that's the early adoption curve of Spotify in the music industry. Where do you think we are in terms of the adoption curve of AI in advertising?
Oh, we're still at base camp, I think. I still think that we are very early days. Why do I say that? Because I think everyone is on a journey of adoption. I think there are very few who can, with conviction, say that they've adopted AI at the scale of their organization to reap the full benefits of it holistically. I think that, and if someone is saying that, I think that they're kudos to them, but I doubt it very much. I think we speak to lots of folks. If you're a smaller business, you have a distinct advantage. You can move a lot more quickly. I get that. But for the industry, if you say the industry at large, I'd say very early stages.
Still, it's an exciting journey to come.
Yeah, of course.
It's just constantly invigorating to be at the heart of that. We're going to flip the script before we wrap up. And Callie, we're going to put you right on the spot with some quick fire questions. Can you give us one AI prediction for the next 12 months? Just one.
I think there's going to be less fear around what AI can do and more of those unlock moments and aha moments where it just becomes part of the everyday, and that's what's going to have a compounding effect on the adoption curve.
I have some as well, though. I have 2 questions for you, Callie. What's the one technology tool you genuinely couldn't function without? Work or personal? Doesn't matter.
This is very basic, but I ask ChatGPT more things than I am proud of, whether if it's child related, work related. Check the tone of this email to make sure that I'm hitting all the right points. Chat has become a great assistant for me. So
Nice. And what is the last thing you read, watched, or listened to that genuinely changed how you think about something? I'm assuming listened to, given your Spotify experience, but go on.
it was actually something that you shared with me, Toby, with Michelle Obama. And she was on the Diary of a CEO podcast, I believe it was, and just hearing, her worldview and perspective and kind of everything that she believes and how she sees things evolving. It just kind of reframed, I guess in the minute that you sent it to me, I was in a little frazzled mind space, and it just kind of grounded me and rerouted me. And since then, I've had PR conversations. We did consultant events. We're doing this podcast, and it's kind of regrounded. Even just the way that I present myself and can even perceive what it is that we're doing right now, because it's hard to kind of zoom out when you're in the day-to-day and there's so much going on of like what actually gets done. But if you look back 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, there has been so much change and progress for me personally, professionally, and as us as a business and in the entire landscape that it's you just got to take a moment to reflect.
The great response, Callie. Glad that it helped.
I loved it.
And let's round this out with a lighter question. We've been talking about Spotify a lot. Spotify is currently celebrating its 20th anniversary. And Spotify love their Spotify Wrapped approach. So, Callie, you've probably got a playlist of your most played songs of all time. What's at the top?
I do have a playlist of my most played songs of all times. A lot of that has now been dominated by my child and children's music. But if you go back to my own Spotify listening history, it is a lot of Kanye West and it is a lot of Lady Gaga.
I mean, we have the Lady Gaga in common. She was my first ever played track back in 2009.
Wow.
That's it. Well, that's good.
And it still blows my mind that the US didn't have Spotify until 2011. I don't know how you coped for those 2 years.
Yeah, I was still downloading singles off of the iTunes store.
Oh my gosh.
Kids these days will never understand.
99 cents. 99 cents per single.
So that brings us right round to where we started with the Spotify parallel, and it's really worth sitting with. So the music industry didn't stumble with streaming because it was slow. It stumbled because it tried to fit something new into the old way of working. This was a new channel, a new format, a new threat to manage, when actually it was a totally different kind of thing entirely. One that changed the relationship between artists and audiences, rewrote the economics of discovery, and rewarded the people and the teams who took the time to understand it on its own terms. AI is presenting marketing with the same choice, and the brands that are getting ahead aren't the ones who are the loudest. They're the ones who've done the hard work in the background, figuring out which AI, for which role, for which problem, and they've been honest enough to keep the right expertise in the room. Human craft still matters. The art director still makes the best AI images. The difference is now the speed, the scale, the range of what that human expertise can produce. And that's what Pencil is built to make possible. And that's the transformation worth having. Thank you, Callie, for joining us. Thank you, Toby, for co-hosting with me. And thank you to everyone who's listened. See you next time. The Pencil Perspective. New episodes bi-weekly.